A young black girl on her way to visit her father. A well-respected police chief is confronted by a group of merciless firefighters. They show no compassion, ridiculing her, drenching her with water, and humiliating her, shattering her innocence. But when the truth comes to light, what follows rattles the entire city. Jasmine, a 13-year-old black girl with long curly hair and a bright smile, was heading to see her dad, Ethan, a renowned and esteemed police captain in the city. Today wasn't a special day, but for Jasmine, this trip filled her with indescribable joy. Each time she thought of her father, she felt an overwhelming sense of admiration and pride. To her, he was a hero, someone who fought for justice and was always eager to assist everyone in the community. The route from her school to the police station wasn't very far, and Jasmine had traversed these familiar streets countless times. The sun shone warmly, illuminating the streets and making the fallen leaves on the sidewalks sparkle. Jasmine took a deep breath, savoring the scent of autumn in the air. Today, she intended to surprise her dad, bringing him a bit of unexpected happiness after a hectic day at work. As she walked through each street, Jasmine reflected on the stories her father often shared about the cases he had resolved, the challenges he had encountered, and how he was always fair to everyone, regardless of race or status. One day I will be just like him, Jasmine whispered to herself, smiling gently. But as she neared the intersection, Jasmine spotted a large fire truck parked by the side of the road. She didn't pay much attention until she noticed a group of firefighters in uniform gathered nearby, talking and laughing loudly. At first, she merely glanced at them and intended to keep walking, but as she got closer, one of them turned to look at her and nudged a friend beside him. Jasmine felt their eyes on her, and an unsettling sensation began to grow within her. She decided to walk faster, hoping to pass them without any trouble. However, just a few steps away, she heard a voice calling from behind. "Hey, little girl, where are you off to in such a hurry?" One of them called out, his tone both harsh and mocking. Jasmine paused slightly, glancing back at the group of firefighters. She didn't want to seem disrespectful, but she also felt uncomfortable with their approach. "I'm going to see my dad," she replied, her voice soft but loud enough for them to hear, trying to remain polite. She just wanted to pass by quickly without drawing too much attention. "Your dad, huh?" Another firefighter chimed in, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Who's your dad that's so important you've got to rush over?" Jasmine hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should say, but her pride and her father prevailed. She straightened her back, looking at the group of firefighters with newfound confidence. "My dad is Ethan, the police captain," she said, her voice firm, as if to prove that she wasn't just an ordinary little girl. Jasmine's answer made the firefighters erupt in laughter. Initially, it was a chuckle, but then their laughter grew louder, becoming more mocking. Jasmine felt a rising unease as she saw their expressions shift from curiosity to cold disdain. "Oh, so you're the police captain's daughter," one of them sneered, stepping closer to her. Before Jasmine could react, he quickly grabbed a large water hose beside the fire truck with a malicious grin. He aimed the hose directly at her. "Let's see if the police captain's daughter can handle a little fun, shall we?" Jasmine's heart raced as fear filled her chest. She stepped back, raising her hands in front of her as if to shield herself. "Please don't," she said softly, her voice shaky and choked. Jasmine tried to remain calm, but the fear left her uncertain about what to do. Her pleas, however, were completely ignored. With a swift motion, he turned on the hose, blasting a stream of freezing water directly at Jasmine. The force of the water hit her so hard she staggered, nearly falling. The icy chill bit into her skin, making her shiver uncontrollably. The firefighters roared with laughter, their laughter echoing down the empty street. "What's there to be scared of? You're the police captain's daughter," another one of them jeered loudly. "Bet you're tough enough to handle a bit of cold." Jasmine stood there, her body freezing, trembling as the water continued to soak her. Their taunts and laughter felt like knives cutting through her pride. She tried to hold her ground, but their eyes, their cruel words, made her feel small and helpless. Jasmine looked around, hoping for someone to come to her aid, but the street was eerily empty that day. Not a single person in sight. She felt deep despair, desperately trying to shield herself with her hands, but the freezing water kept drenching her. The icy drops seeped through her clothes, soaking into her skin, making her feel as if she were being engulfed in ice. "Please stop," she pleaded weakly, her voice almost breaking into a sob. But her pleas only made the firefighters laugh even harder. One of them leaned down, smirking at her with a look full of contempt. "It's just a little water. What's there to be afraid of, kid?" he said, his tone laced with mockery, keeping the hose aimed at her. Jasmine felt her eyes sting, tears spilling over uncontrollably. In that moment, the pride she held for her father, the image of a strong hero in her mind, seemed overshadowed by the cruelty she was enduring. Jasmine stood there, drenched in freezing water, consumed by fear and humiliation. All she knew was that she wanted to escape this scene, but she had no way out. Jasmine stood motionless as the freezing water poured down on her, her whole body shaking not only from the bone-chilling cold, but also from sheer terror. Each wave of water forced her to take a step back, as if every drop stripped away her confidence and self-worth. The firefighters around her exchanged sneering glances and mocking laughs. Their laughter filled the quiet air, cutting into Jasmine's heart like sharp knives. "So it turns out that even the police captain's daughter is just a scared little girl, huh?" one of them said, his voice dripping with contempt, not even considering her worthy of respect. The man who spoke folded his arms, looking down at Jasmine with a malicious smirk, as if she were nothing more than a toy to entertain him. Jasmine tried to stay calm, her small hands desperately trying to shield herself from the icy stream, but there was no escaping the cruelty in front of her. She bit her lip, her eyes red, holding back tears, but eventually, she couldn't take it any longer. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mingling with the icy water running down her face. But all she could do was stand still, enduring the humiliation. "Please stop," Jasmine whispered, her voice lost amidst the sound of rushing water and their gloating laughter. But her plea only seemed to amuse them more. "It's just a bit of water," another firefighter mocked, his eyes narrowing with a smirk. "The police captain's daughter is this weak? It's like she's never been sprayed with cold water before." Jasmine wanted to scream, to shove them away and run. But her feet felt glued to the ground, unable to move. Each mocking comment was like a deep cut to her pride, making her feel smaller and weaker than ever. She had always thought of herself as strong, as someone who could be proud of her father. But now all she felt was shame. "Oh, she's even crying," another firefighter laughed loudly, as if he'd just seen something hilarious. "Hey guys, check it out, the police captain's daughter can cry." The firefighters kept laughing, exchanging mocking words and looking at Jasmine like she was nothing more than a helpless child. Jasmine felt as though her heart was being crushed under the weight of their ridicule and laughter. She looked around, hoping someone would see and come to her aid. But the street was still empty, as if the whole world had turned its back on her. A vague fear seeped into Jasmine's mind as she wondered why they were targeting her, why they were intent on tormenting her like this. She had never met them, never done anything wrong. She was just an ordinary girl. So why were they treating her with such cruelty? These questions tore at her mind, but no one answered. All she received was more mocking laughter and scornful looks. One of the firefighters, seemingly the most aggressive, took a step closer and leaned down to her face. "Well, little girl, enjoying yourself? Isn't it wonderful for a captain's daughter to experience a bit of hardship?" he whispered, his voice filled with malice. Jasmine tried to keep her lips from trembling, to appear strong, but his cold, ruthless gaze shattered every ounce of her composure. She felt her legs grow weak, barely able to hold her up. The feelings of weakness and helplessness overwhelmed her, and she wanted to scream, to disappear from this place immediately. But her cries for help were drowned out by the endless laughter of the group in front of her. They exchanged sneering comments, talking about her with disdain, as if she were nothing but a worthless toy. Every word and every look made her feel smaller and more powerless. Jasmine stood there, her body frozen. She couldn't respond, couldn't react. She could only stare back at them with eyes full of shame, her heart weighed down by disappointment and pain. She had once admired her father, and once felt proud to be the daughter of a police captain. But now all she felt was humiliation, the pain of seeing her pride trampled underfoot. When the firefighter finally let go of the hose and turned away, Jasmine still couldn't move. His final scornful words felt like a knife slicing through her heart. "Next time, tell your dad to keep a closer eye on you, kid." His tone and gaze dripped with contempt. as if he was ridiculing not just her, but her entire family and heritage. Jasmine felt a sharp pain in her heart, as though every word he spoke was a direct blow to her pride. She had been naive to believe she could be treated fairly, that justice would always be on her side. But right now, those beliefs felt like shattered illusions ground beneath the feet of others. As the silence returned and the firefighters finally walked away, Jasmine struggled to catch her breath. She felt as if she had just lived through a nightmare. But sadly, this was her reality. Tears continued to run down her cheeks, unrelenting. Her heart pounded in her chest, not from fear anymore, but from rage. From a sense of injustice so intense it felt suffocating. Why did she have to endure this? Why was she treated so cruelly, simply for being the daughter of a black police captain? Bitterness filled Jasmine's heart, as if the whole world had turned its back on her. She felt as if she had lost everything. Her pride, her self-respect, and most of all, her trust in justice. She had once believed that in this society, her father and his colleagues would always protect truth and justice, but the brutal reality she faced today made her doubt everything. Where was justice when she was humiliated simply because of her skin color? Would anyone stand up for her? These questions swirled in her mind, forming an endless loop. Jasmine stood there, alone, with fear enveloping her heart. She wondered if things would ever go back to the way they were, and if she would ever feel safe and strong again. The beautiful memories of her family and the pride of being a police captain's daughter gradually faded from her mind, replaced by shadows of fear and pain. She knew her life would never be the same again, that these emotional scars would forever be a part of her. But deep within her, a small flame still burned, a fragile spark of belief and hope that someday true justice would appear. Jasmine promised herself that she would grow stronger and that she wouldn't let bullies like them bring her down. She would find a way to not only protect herself, but also to stand up for others who might be facing the same injustices. As she looked down at her trembling hands, Jasmine realized this wasn't the end, but the beginning of a new journey. A journey to reclaim justice for herself. Jasmine trudged step by step toward the police station, her body numbed with cold, her legs aching and her heart heavy with sorrow. She could barely remember how she got there. At times, she just wanted to sit down on the side of the road and cry, but something within her urged her to keep moving. Each step carried the weight of pain and humiliation, but it was also her only hope. The hope of seeing her father, of finding someone to protect and comfort her. As Jasmine approached the police station, the familiar building and its lights came into view. She took a deep breath, trying to gather her composure, but the fear and hurt clung to her as if nowhere in the world could be safe enough anymore. She walked through the main door, her hair and clothes still soaked, leaving a trail of water on the floor. An officer passing by saw her, his face reflecting shock and concern. "Jasmine, what happened?" he asked, hurrying over to her. Jasmine tried to speak, but her throat was dry, and every word seemed trapped inside her. The fear and trauma made it impossible to form words. The officer gently placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice soft with worry. "Let me take you to your father." She nodded quietly, following him down the hallway toward her father's office. She didn't know where to begin, didn't know what she would say, but just seeing her dad would bring her some comfort. Inside his office, Ethan, Jasmine's father, the esteemed police captain, was sitting at his desk, focused on a stack of files. Then the door opened, and he saw his daughter. His expression changed completely. He stood up abruptly, his face filled with shock and concern as he took in her disheveled appearance, her soaked clothes, her shivering body, and her tear-streaked face. "Jasmine, what happened to you?" Ethan hurried over, placing his hands on her shoulders, his eyes full of worry and love. Looking up at her father's familiar face, all of Jasmine's pain and fear came rushing out. She couldn't hold it back any longer. Her tears spilled over, and she let out a soft sob, burying her face in his chest. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, gently stroking her hair, his voice soothing even as fierce anger and sorrow filled him. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here now. You're safe," he whispered, though he could barely contain his emotions. Seeing his daughter in such distress broke his heart. When Jasmine had calmed down a bit, she began recounting what had happened. Her voice fainted and shaky as she described the group of firefighters who had tormented her. Each word Jasmine spoke felt like a stab to Ethan's heart. He listened intently as she described how the firefighters blocked her way, mocked her, and sprayed her with cold water while hurling cruel words. She recounted their mocking tone, their disdainful looks, and their malicious smiles, as if she were merely a toy, an outlet for their amusement. With each detail Jasmine shared, Ethan's anger deepened, and he had to restrain himself from exploding. Yet alongside the anger, Ethan felt an overwhelming guilt. How could he forgive himself when his daughter had to endure such pain? As a police captain, he had dedicated his life to protecting the community, but now he had failed to protect the person he loved most. This guilt tore at him, making him feel like he had failed in his duty as a father. Looking into Jasmine's frightened eyes, Ethan saw the deep scars this experience had left on her. The image of his daughter, always radiant, proud, and strong, was now replaced by a small, trembling, and fearful girl. It felt as though his heart was being crushed under Jasmine's pain. At that moment, he vowed silently that he would do whatever it took to seek justice for her. But at the same time, a conflicting struggle arose within him. He knew that confronting this group of firefighters could lead to unforeseeable consequences. These firefighters weren't just ordinary individuals. They held power, had standing in the community, and had no qualms about abusing that power to belittle others. If he pursued an investigation, could it put his family at risk? Could he protect Jasmine from any potential retaliation? Ethan felt torn between his duty to protect his daughter and his responsibility to maintain peace in the community. He knew this wouldn't be an easy path, that confronting people of such influence could endanger his family. But when he looked into Jasmine's tear-streaked eyes, hearing her broken sobs, he knew he couldn't stand by. Jasmine had suffered enough, and he couldn't allow this pain to go on. He held Jasmine's shoulders firmly, his eyes filled with resolve and boundless love. "You did the right thing by coming here," he said, his voice calm but full of strength. "I promise you this won't end like this. I won't let anyone hurt you without facing the consequences." Jasmine looked up at her father, her eyes filled with hope and trust. Although the pain still lingered, her father's determined and resolute gaze reassured her. She knew her dad wouldn't abandon her, that he would do everything he could to protect her and seek justice. Ethan embraced his daughter once more, his strong arms forming a shield around her, guarding her from all the hurt and shame. Inside him, a fierce fire of anger and determination burned. He couldn't allow those cruel individuals to continue their abuse unchecked, and couldn't let those who should be protectors of the community turn into its oppressors. Once Jasmine had settled down, Ethan helped her into a chair and brought her a dry towel. He called in a trusted officer and began outlining the first steps for an investigation. He no longer had any doubt. This was not just about justice for his daughter, but also about defending honor and what was right. Those responsible had to be held accountable, and he would do everything in his power to make sure of it. But deep down, Ethan knew this would not be an easy battle. He understood he was about to engage in a fight that could have serious consequences, yet he refused to let fear control him. His love and commitment to Jasmine overpowered everything else. He was not only a father, but also a police captain, and he had a duty to justice. He looked at Jasmine, his gaze filled with determination and endless love. "I won't let them get away with this, Jasmine. I promise you." Jasmine nodded, her heart swelling with a new sense of hope and trust. Though the pain was still there, she felt she could face it as long as her father stood by her. The two sat there in silence, in the quiet of the office, but their eyes spoke volumes. A powerful bond of love and determination to confront the challenges that lay ahead. Ethan stood at the door of the fire station, his eyes blazing with determination and anger. All night he couldn't shake the image of Jasmine shivering in her soaked clothes, her eyes red, her face streaked with tears. He had made up his mind to confront those firefighters, not just to seek justice for his daughter, but to protect his family from the cruelty and injustice they had suffered. However, Ethan didn't plan to engage in an immediate confrontation. As a seasoned police captain, he knew that approaching this carefully and with a plan would be more effective than an impulsive confrontation. He intended to investigate and gather evidence to ensure that those who had hurt his daughter couldn't escape the law's punishment. As he approached the fire station, he saw the firefighters gathered outside, laughing loudly, as if they had nothing to worry about. When they noticed him, they stopped, looking at him with a mix of curiosity and disdain. One of them, a tall man with a cold expression, stepped forward with a smirk. "Captain Ethan, come to see us? What brings you here personally?" he asked, his tone mocking. Ethan fought to keep his composure, restraining the anger welling up inside. Taking a deep breath, he replied in a calm, steady voice, though his tone carried a serious edge. "I'm here to ask about what happened with my daughter, Jasmine. She's told me everything you did to her, and I'd like to hear your explanation." The firefighters looked at each other and then burst into laughter. One of them nodded as if mocking Ethan's seriousness.
"An explanation?"
"It was just a bit of fun. Your daughter's too sensitive. Just a little water, and she's all upset, Captain. Maybe you should teach her to toughen up a bit," another firefighter added with contempt. Ethan struggled to hold back his anger, his fist clenching tightly. "You think your actions were harmless? You hurt a child and destroyed my daughter's self-esteem, all for your cruel amusement. Aren't you ashamed?" the tall man sneered, stepping even closer to Ethan. "Oh, Captain, don't get all dramatic. She's just a kid, but what's with the weakness? Grow up, Captain. It was just a bit of fun." Ethan realized that these men had no intention of showing any remorse. They even seemed to mock his anger, as if he were just a powerless officer. Their sneers and disdainful laughter only stoked the fire of fury within him, but he forced himself to stay calm. "You're firefighters. Your duty is to protect and serve the community, not to harm innocent people," Ethan said, his eyes flashing with determination. "I won't let this go." The tall man raised an eyebrow, then chuckled, glancing dismissively at his comrades. "And what are you going to do, Captain? Take us to court? Seems like you're forgetting you're just a guy in uniform." His words felt like a direct challenge to Ethan, but before he could respond, the group of firefighters changed their stance. The tall man gestured to his teammates, and they quickly surrounded Ethan, forming a threatening circle. "Listen here, Captain," he said, lowering his voice with a menacing tone. "Around here, you don't have any authority. Don't think just because you're a cop you can do whatever you want." Before Ethan could react, one of them suddenly lunged forward, shoving him hard on the shoulder, causing him to lose his balance and stumble backward. The firefighters took advantage of the moment, charging in to attack him. Ethan tried to defend himself but was outnumbered and overpowered. He was quickly overwhelmed. A hard punch landed on his face, leaving him dazed. Pain spread through his body, but he forced himself to rise. However, before he could regain his footing, a kick slammed into his stomach, making him stagger. The pain didn't relent, and he was forced down to the ground. "What good is being a cop around here? You're nothing," one of them taunted, his face twisted with a sneer. Ethan struggled to get up, but the firefighters continued to attack, punching his back and kicking his stomach without a trace of mercy. Each blow carried contempt and mockery, their laughter echoing around him, intensifying his feelings of humiliation and helplessness. He thought of Jasmine, of the cruelty his daughter had endured, and it gave him renewed strength. With the last bit of energy he had, he managed to push one of them back, but they didn't stop. Each punch and each kick grew stronger, leaving him defenseless. "Where's the big strong police captain now? Weren't you supposed to be tough?" Another firefighter sneered before shoving him back to the ground. Lying on the ground, his entire body aching, Ethan still felt a fierce fire of anger burning within him. He knew he couldn't give up. He had to stand up for Jasmine, for the justice he had dedicated his life to upholding. Even though he was beaten to the point of exhaustion, he refused to give up. He glared at the man standing over him, his eyes filled with defiance and fearlessness. The firefighters finally stopped, looking down at him with mocking and disdainful eyes. "Remember this, Captain. Don't ever stick your nose in our business again," the tall man said, his tone menacing. "This was just a warning. Next time it won't be this easy." They left him there, bruised and battered. Ethan struggled to get up, but the pain from his injuries made it impossible to stand. He sat on the ground, breathing heavily, his gaze distant, his heart filled with anger and shame. But at the same time, a powerful resolve rose within him. What happened today didn't scare him. It only strengthened his determination here. He wouldn't let these men escape justice, and wouldn't allow them to continue harming innocent people. With the last bit of strength he had, Ethan managed to stand, leaning against the wall to regain his balance. The pain radiated through his body, but he began the slow, steady walk back to the police station. In his heart, he had a new plan. No matter the difficulties and dangers ahead, he knew he wouldn't stop. He would fight for justice for Jasmine, protect his family, and uphold his honor until the very end. Ethan walked into the police station, each step an effort against the throbbing pain in his body. The bruises on his face and the scattered injuries across his body all bore witness to the confrontation he'd just endured. Some of his colleagues immediately noticed his state and came over, concern etched on their faces. "Ethan, what happened?" asked Ryan, a fellow officer and friend, his face filled with shock and anger as he took in Ethan's injuries. Ethan looked at Ryan, then around the station. He decided it was time to stop keeping things to himself. He knew he couldn't fight this battle alone, and that unity would be their strength in seeking justice. Taking a deep breath, he recounted everything from what the firefighters had done to Jasmine to the brutal attack he just endured. When he finished, a heavy silence fell over the room. His colleagues were stunned, anger simmering in their eyes. One of them stood up, his gaze resolute. "We can't let this go unpunished," he said, his voice trembling with indignation. "They're firefighters sworn to protect, not to harm." As Ethan's story spread through the station, word of it started leaking out to the community. Friends and neighbors of Ethan and Jasmine, hearing of what happened, couldn't stand by idly. Accounts of the events, the cruelty inflicted on an innocent girl, and the brutal assault on her father began spreading throughout the community. Not long after, a video surfaced on social media. It was taken by a witness who happened to walk by the fire station and recorded the moment when Ethan was surrounded, mocked, and attacked by the firefighters. The video showed Ethan being shoved to the ground, enduring punch after kick from men who were supposed to protect the public. The person who posted the video wrote, "This is how a police captain was treated by a group of firefighters when he tried to seek justice for his daughter. Is this how we treat those who stand up for what's right?" The video quickly became a lightning rod for outrage on social media. Thousands shared it, commented, and expressed their anger. Social media platforms and forums filled with calls for justice for Ethan and Jasmine. Comments like, "This injustice is unacceptable. Justice must be served for this family," spread everywhere. Ethan and Jasmine's story soon became a symbol of the fight against abuse of power and violence. Amid the mounting public anger, Ethan's colleagues didn't stay silent. Ryan, his closest friend in the department, spoke out during an internal meeting. "Ethan isn't just a police captain. He's a father and a respected friend. What his family has gone through is intolerable, and we can't let those responsible go unpunished." Ryan's words spread quickly, rallying even more public support. Friends, colleagues, and even strangers sent words of encouragement and shared in the pain Jasmine had endured. Human rights and child advocacy organizations also stepped in, urging local authorities to take appropriate action to protect Ethan's family. Meanwhile, Ethan's colleagues had begun preparing an investigation into the group of firefighters, determined not to let them escape accountability. They collaborated with the media, providing information and evidence to ensure that Ethan and Jasmine's story wouldn't be forgotten. One day, while Ethan and Jasmine were at home, his phone rang. It was a call from a neighbor named Mrs. Collins, a longtime friend of the family. Her voice was shaky with emotion, but also filled with resolve. "Ethan, I just want you to know that our whole neighborhood is behind you. We've all signed letters to the city council demanding an investigation, and that those who harmed Jasmine be brought to justice. We won't let them get away with this." Ethan was silent, feeling a deep warmth and gratitude fill his heart. He hadn't realized how much support his family had. He looked at Jasmine, and her eyes sparkled with a newfound hope. Although the painful memories remained, the solidarity and support of the community eased her sense of isolation and hurt. The next day, a group of residents gathered in front of the fire station, holding signs demanding justice for Ethan's family. They chanted for action from local officials and authorities, with many carrying signs that read, "Justice for Jasmine," and "No room for abuse of power." Their presence was a reminder that justice couldn't be ignored, and they wouldn't stop until the truth was brought to light. The protest quickly drew the attention of the media. Reporters flocked to the scene, capturing and broadcasting the story, spreading Ethan and Jasmine's story across the country. People watching on TV and social media were outraged at what they saw. Human rights organizations and child advocates joined in condemning the abuse of power and calling for a full investigation. Ethan knew that the fight wasn't over, but he no longer had to face it alone. He had the community behind him, with colleagues and supporters at his side. At that moment, he understood the true strength of unity and the determination to seek justice. Looking at Jasmine, he felt his heart swell with hope. They wouldn't stop until those who had hurt his daughter were held accountable. As the video of the assault spread and the wave of public outrage grew, the city council was forced to hold an emergency meeting to discuss what had happened. Under public pressure and media scrutiny, they announced an independent investigation to get to the bottom of the incident. This was not only the first step toward justice for Jasmine, but also a signal that the community had spoken up and would not be silent in the face of injustice. In the meantime, Ethan and Jasmine received countless messages of encouragement and support from friends, neighbors, and even strangers. Jasmine began to feel a new sense of confidence, the knowledge that she wasn't alone as a victim. She had a community behind her, people ready to stand up for what was right. With the awakening of the community and the power of solidarity, Ethan and Jasmine's story became more than a personal struggle. It became a reminder of the importance of justice and compassion. They had sparked a movement for justice that no one could silence, and Ethan knew that from here on, their journey would no longer be solitary. Before the trial officially began, the city council launched a thorough investigation into the incident. The council's investigation was a complex and challenging process. Before the public hearings, the council had to gather preliminary information from those present at the scene, including the involved firefighters and any witnesses nearby. From the start, however, many involved were uncooperative. Some testimonies were inconsistent, while others avoided responsibility, claiming they hadn't seen the details of the incident. The hearings were tense, repeatedly interrupted by attempts to obscure the truth and deny responsibility from certain individuals. The city council realized that this was not merely a personal dispute, but a situation involving cover-ups and even victim blaming. This only strengthened their resolve to uncover the truth and ensure that no one could evade accountability. Despite these obstacles, Ethan and his supporters continued to press for a thorough investigation by leveraging the media and community support. They encouraged the public to follow and support the fight for justice for Jasmine. Public opinion surged, putting tremendous pressure on the city council to work carefully and impartially. As a result, evidence began to emerge with greater clarity and precision during the investigation. The council decided to review all surveillance footage in the area. The footage from the day of the incident provided invaluable evidence, revealing the full truth. The recordings showed Jasmine being threatened and insulted, with the firefighters laughing and intentionally humiliating her. These tapes not only exposed the cruelty of those involved, but also completely refuted their irresponsible excuses. Moreover, as the investigation delved deeper, more witnesses came forward to testify for Jasmine, initially silent out of fear or concern for their own lives and jobs. These individuals decided to speak up due to the community's strong support for Jasmine. Their testimonies further corroborated the evidence, making it clear that this was not just a minor dispute, but a calculated act of bullying and malice. The investigation went beyond collecting evidence. It sparked a debate about the responsibilities and ethical standards of public service professionals. The city council began reconsidering professional ethics regulations and measures to protect citizens from abuses of power. Jasmine's case ignited a broader discussion throughout the community about equality and the fair treatment of all people, regardless of race or social status. Finally, after weeks of intense investigation and under strong public pressure, the trial date was set. This was not just a trial for a single incident, but an opportunity to bring truth to light and deliver a powerful message about justice and accountability. On the day of the trial, Ethan and Jasmine entered the courtroom filled with determination. They were no longer alone, as they had been in the beginning. Behind them were friends, colleagues, neighbors, and the entire community there to support them. The atmosphere in the courtroom was heavy but hopeful, as everyone wanted to see justice served. Ethan sat next to Jasmine, holding her hand tightly, as if to give her additional strength. He felt a mix of anxiety and sorrow, but also immense pride at the resilience in Jasmine's gaze. She had endured so much, but today she would stand up, face those who hurt her, and demand justice. The trial began with the prosecutors presenting the evidence, the video showing Ethan being attacked by the firefighters, and witness testimonies on the courtroom's large screen. The video played, showing Ethan being surrounded, shoved to the ground, and enduring relentless punches and kicks from the firefighters. The harsh sounds of the blows, mocking laughter, and cruelty from men who should have been protecting the community stirred outrage in everyone present. These images and sounds were not only irrefutable evidence, but also invoked a powerful emotional response from the audience. People looked at Ethan with empathy and admiration, feeling the pain and humiliation that he and his daughter had endured. Many in the room couldn't hold back their tears as they watched. The firefighter's lawyer attempted to defend them, arguing that these actions were merely a joke taken too far, and that the defendants didn't intend to cause real harm. He emphasized that these firefighters were dedicated members of the community who had made a mistake in a moment of poor judgment. However, this reasoning did nothing to quell the public's anger. What had happened couldn't be dismissed as harmless fun, and the community could not accept that those responsible acted so callously toward an innocent person. When it was Jasmine's turn to testify, everyone in the courtroom held their breath. She walked to the witness stand, her small shoulders straight and her gaze firm and unwavering. Although nervous and a bit afraid, Jasmine knew that today she wasn't a lonely child. She had her father and the whole community behind her, and she wouldn't let those who hurt her go unpunished. Her voice trembled slightly as she began, but she quickly regained composure and recounted every detail of the incident. She described how the firefighters looked at her, mocked her, and grabbed the powerful hose, spraying her for their amusement. Jasmine told of their disdainful looks, malicious smiles, and constant jeers. She spoke about the fear and humiliation she felt enduring their torment without anyone coming to her aid. "I'm just a kid," Jasmine said, her voice small but filled with emotion. "I was so scared, and I couldn't understand why they were doing this to me. I couldn't understand why people who were supposed to protect the community would treat me like that. I can't forget the feeling of being humiliated, of being laughed at like a toy. It's a pain I've carried in my heart since that day." Jasmine's words resonated through the courtroom like a heart-wrenching cry full of pain and indignation. Her gaze burned with pride as she looked directly at the firefighters, no longer afraid, only strong. Jasmine's courage left the courtroom silent, many unable to hold back tears at what she had endured. To them, Jasmine was not just a victim. She was a symbol of bravery, resilience, and the power to face adversity. Ethan sat in the gallery, eyes brimming with pride. He could feel the strength radiating from his daughter, and it reinforced his belief that this fight was righteous and necessary. While the courtroom remained emotionally charged after Jasmine's testimony, one of the firefighters who had remained silent since the trial began suddenly stood up. He took a deep breath, his voice trembling as he spoke. I am truly sorry," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I was wrong to participate in this. At the time, I didn't think of the consequences, and just went along with what those around me said. But, looking back, I realized my actions were unforgivable. I hurt an innocent child because of my weakness and cowardice. Jasmine, I am truly sorry." His remorseful admission rippled through the tense atmosphere in the courtroom. People looked at him, feeling a small sense of relief that one of those who caused Jasmine pain had recognized his wrongdoing. His apology couldn't erase the pain Jasmine suffered, but it added a new layer to the story, showing that not everyone was entirely heartless. Jasmine looked at the firefighter as he bowed his head in apology. She didn't respond, but her eyes softened slightly as if to show silent forgiveness. Ethan too felt a sense of relief. He understood that remorse was the first step toward redemption, and he respected that apology, though the pain inflicted on his daughter would never be forgotten. As the questioning and testimonies concluded, the judge proceeded to deliver the verdict. The firefighters were found guilty of assault and abuse of power and were sentenced accordingly, including reparations for the emotional damage inflicted on Jasmine and her family. The firefighter who showed remorse and apologized in court received a reduced sentence and was required to undergo rehabilitation and community service to make amends. When the verdict was announced, applause erupted in the courtroom, a celebration of relief, satisfaction, and support for Ethan and Jasmine's family. The trial's outcome was not only a personal victory, but a powerful reminder of the strength of justice and community solidarity. Jasmine stepped down from the witness stand and returned to her father's side. Ethan wrapped his arms around his daughter, filled with boundless pride. He knew that she had learned a profound lesson in courage, that she was not just a victim, but someone who had fought for justice for herself and her community. The trial ended, but its impact would resonate in the hearts of those who witnessed it. The images of Jasmine standing up to testify, of Ethan's relentless struggle, had become symbols of resilience and commitment to justice. On their way home, holding her father's hand, Jasmine felt her heart lighter, filled with hope. She knew she hadn't just reclaimed justice, but had learned that the community would always stand by her, supporting and protecting the values they cherished most. Ethan looked at his daughter, full of pride and gratitude, knowing that from this point forward, they would continue building a better life together. After the trial, Ethan and Jasmine's story didn't end with simply reclaiming justice. What they went through became a powerful source of inspiration for the entire community, sparking a wave of calls for reform in both the firefighting and police sectors. City officials recognized that this incident couldn't be ignored, and necessary changes to prevent abuses of power had to be implemented. The city government quickly organized meetings with leaders from both the police and fire departments, initiating constructive dialogues. They discussed ways to improve oversight, strengthen professional ethics, and establish strict regulations to ensure no one abuses their authority. New measures were introduced, including training in situational handling and communication skills, helping firefighters and police officers better understand their responsibilities to the community. Meanwhile, Ethan and Jasmine felt a sense of peace now that justice had finally been served. The pain they had endured couldn't be erased, but seeing those responsible held accountable reassured them that true justice was still attainable. They realized that their journey had gone beyond a personal victory. It had helped build a stronger and more united community. For Jasmine, her story was no longer simply a painful memory. After everything she had been through, she realized that she could become a source of inspiration for others, especially her peers. Jasmine's resilience and courage helped her not only overcome her pain, but also become an admirable role model for those who had faced injustice. One day, she decided to share her story at a school assembly, standing on stage before her friends and teachers. Jasmine confidently recounted her experiences, not as a victim, but as someone who had dared to stand up for what was right. She shared that despite the fear and difficulty, she refused to remain silent in the face of injustice. Her words resonated throughout the hall, and everyone listened intently, sensing the strength and resolve in every word she spoke. "We should not stay silent when faced with injustice," Jasmine said, her voice steady and full of emotion. "If I can overcome my fear and stand up, then you can too. We all have the right to live in respect and safety, and no one has the right to take that away from us." Jasmine's words left everyone in the room silent, moved and inspired by her courage. Many of her classmates stood up, applauding her bravery. Her teachers and peers no longer saw Jasmine as an ordinary friend, but as a symbol of resilience and an inspiration to face hardships without backing down. Gradually, Jasmine's story spread throughout the school, and she began receiving invitations to speak at community forums and events, sharing her experiences and inspiring others. She became a voice of courage, encouraging people, especially young people, to never accept silence in the face of injustice. For Jasmine, standing up was no longer just about protecting herself, but about upholding justice and fostering a sense of responsibility within her community. Ethan watched his daughter with deep pride. He knew Jasmine was not just a girl who had endured suffering, but someone who had transformed her pain into strength, becoming a beacon of hope for others. Ethan continued to take part in police reform efforts, contributing to building a fairer, more protective justice system for the community. He was committed to ensuring that what his family had suffered would never happen to anyone else. This event left a lasting mark on both Ethan's and Jasmine's lives, and created a wave of positive change within the entire community. Organizations and authorities began reviewing their oversight and operational processes, promoting broad reforms to ensure that each individual is protected and respected. Public service training programs emphasizing ethics, responsibility, and respect for the community became integral to recruitment and training efforts. Policies on handling abuses of power were also tightened, and accountability became more transparent. For Jasmine, each time she shared her story, she felt joy and relief. She was not only recounting the painful experiences she had endured, but also spreading a message of strength and resolve. With each retelling, she grew stronger, no longer a victim but a leader and inspiration to others in the community. Jasmine became a symbol of hope and bravery. People who faced injustice or suffering sought her out, sharing their stories and receiving encouragement from her. The community began organizing gatherings and forums where people could share support for one another and promote values of justice and compassion. The impact didn't stop there. Those who had supported Ethan and Jasmine throughout the trial became advocates for justice within their communities. They recognized that each person has a responsibility to the community, and that unity is the strength needed to combat injustice. Ethan and Jasmine's story opened a new chapter for the community, one about solidarity, fairness, and faith in truth and compassion. Looking back on their journey, Ethan and Jasmine realized that they had turned their pain into motivation, transforming a personal struggle into collective strength. They understood that everything had changed, that justice was no longer an abstract concept, but something they had truly achieved. With the community's united support for Ethan, this battle reaffirmed his love for his work and his responsibility not only to protect citizens, but to uphold the noble values of justice and ethics. For Jasmine, this struggle helped her discover her inner strength and her potential to be a guiding light for others. Their story is not only one of legal victory, but a testament to how unity and courage can transform an entire community. In the eyes of Ethan and Jasmine, they saw hope and confidence in the future. They knew that what they had done brought justice not only to themselves, but also created a stronger, more united community, ready to defend what was right in any circumstance. On a mild autumn afternoon, with sunlight filtering through and the air scented with fallen leaves, Jasmine took a walk in the park near her house to unwind after a long day of studying. She was absorbed in watching the leaves drift down when she unexpectedly spotted a familiar group. It was the firefighters who had once attacked her. Her heart skipped a beat, and unpleasant memories rushed back. She was about to turn away, but at that moment, they noticed her. Unlike the first time they met, they no longer had arrogant looks and indifferent attitudes. Instead, there was hesitation in their eyes. The eldest among them stepped forward with a sad, remorseful expression. He stopped in front of Jasmine, his voice low and sincere. "You're Jasmine, right? I know after everything we did, you probably don't want to see us, but may I have a moment of your time?" Jasmine looked at them, not replying immediately. She felt a mix of emotions. The humiliation and old pain briefly surfaced, but she recognized the sincerity in their eyes. After a pause, she nodded. Seeing this, the man continued, his voice choked with emotion. "My colleagues and I genuinely want to apologize to you. Jasmine, what we did that day was unforgivable. It was ignorance and thoughtlessness on our part, and I know these words can't erase the pain we caused you, but from the bottom of our hearts, we want you to know that we deeply regret it." He paused, took a deep breath, then continued. "After the incident, the council required us to attend cultural sensitivity training and learn about equality. At first, some of us were still biased, thinking it was unnecessary or overly complicated. But with each session, we painfully realized how wrong we were. Our prejudices had blinded us, making us incapable of seeing that we'd hurt a young girl simply because she was the daughter of someone we didn't like." A younger firefighter chimed in. "Jasmine, I don't know how to express it, but these past few days, every time I recall the look in your eyes that day, I feel a pang of guilt. I never thought our actions could cause so much pain. This incident has taught me that prejudice isn't just a mistaken thought. It can lead to actions that harm others. I understand now, and I promise you I will change, not only in my work but in my beliefs." Jasmine listened, her heart heavy yet feeling a touch of relief. She could sense their genuine remorse and willingness to change. Another firefighter spoke up. "You know, I've worked in firefighting for years, but it wasn't until this incident that I understood what serving the community truly means. It's not just about rescuing people in emergencies, but about treating everyone with respect and fairness. We made a terrible mistake, and I know it's not easy to ask for your forgiveness, but if possible, I hope you'll give us a chance to make amends." Jasmine took a deep breath, feeling the old pain slowly dissipate. She knew that apologies couldn't undo what had happened, but seeing the sincerity in their eyes and their regret, she believed they had truly learned and were committed to change. "I appreciate your words," Jasmine said, her voice soft but resolute. "The wound in my heart will remain, but I hope you all will genuinely change so that no one else has to go through what I did." But the older firefighter bowed his head, his voice thick with emotion. "We won't let you down, Jasmine. We'll do our best to make things right, not only for you but for everyone in the community. We owe you that." Jasmine smiled faintly, her eyes still tinged with emotion but now showing a glimmer of forgiveness. She understood that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, but opening a path forward, free from the chains of the past. In a way, this encounter made her feel stronger and more mature. She left the park feeling lighter, hopeful that they, like herself, would truly change and live better lives. Jasmine slowly walked out of the park, each step carrying the weight of painful memories and the wounds she had once endured. The firefighter's words echoed in her mind like a promise, not only to her but also to the community. Although her heart still felt heavy, Jasmine sensed a newfound peace blossoming within, a feeling of relief after months of pent-up resentment and anger. She realized that forgiveness was not easy, especially when faced with those who had hurt her. But she also understood that forgiveness was a way to release herself from the grip of the past. It didn't just free her, but was a step toward contributing to change and building a better community. Jasmine had once thought she could never forgive those who had wronged her. But today, seeing the sincerity and regret in the firefighter's eyes, she understood that everyone is capable of making mistakes. The important thing is how they choose to make things right. She promised herself to continue living with strength and compassion. Though her heart still bore traces of pain, Jasmine felt she had grown through these trials. Hope ignited within her, and she believed her forgiveness would inspire the firefighters and others around her to change. Deep down, Jasmine hoped that one day she would see her beloved community become a better place, a place where kindness and empathy were the foundation. Leaving the park with a sense of inner strength, Jasmine walked forward with the conviction that no matter the past, the future could still be rewritten. To her, this realization was a precious release, well worth the continued struggle. As the final days of their struggle drew to a close, Ethan and Jasmine stood together in the late afternoon, the gentle sunset casting a peaceful glow over the neighborhood, reflecting on the journey they had endured. Ethan felt a sense of relief now that justice had been served. Yet a question lingered in his heart. Could he truly protect his family in the long run and help build a safer community? Though they had overcome a great challenge, Ethan knew this fight was just one part of a larger picture. He understood that many others were still out there facing injustices, people who hadn't yet been protected or heard. Justice had been achieved for his family, but what about other families? Could he use their story to continue working toward a more just and compassionate society? He looked over at Jasmine. She was no longer the fragile child she once was. Jasmine was now a strong, resilient young woman inspiring others who needed courage. She had faced those who once hurt her, and from that pain, she had found the strength to stand up for what was right. Ethan knew his daughter would go far, that Jasmine would be a trailblazer in the fight for justice. Hand in hand, they walked slowly down the narrow path leading home. Ethan's heart was filled with hope, though he couldn't help but wonder about the future. He knew that the fight for justice wasn't just his family's story, but the story of a community, and of those willing to stand up for what is right. And he believed that with solidarity, anything could be achieved. As the sunset faded, Ethan and Jasmine walked side by side, each carrying a new sense of purpose and resolve. They prepared for the future not just as a family who had triumphed over injustice, but as guides for a community. Their story didn't end here. It was just the beginning of a longer journey, a journey to build a more just and safe society for all. A surprising and anger-provoking story, a senseless act of bullying turned on its head when the truth about the girl's identity was revealed. This is a reminder that every action has consequences. Do you think the firefighter learned his lesson? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more thought-provoking stories. Thank you for watching.